I'm Karen Cleveland, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to apply with Next Schools for the position as director. Education is in my DNA. My great-great-grandmother used to get up each morning, get her little dog, and put him in the rowboat with her and row across Mud Lake in Kissimmee, Florida to teach in a one-room schoolhouse. My own mother instilled in me at a very early age lifelong passion for learning. During my husband's military career, we lived in foreign countries. We lived in different states around our country. And I learned to value the interactions I made with people. I learned to embrace the diversity of everyone that I met. And I had so many great experiences. I collected artifacts wherever we went, knowing that at some time I would have my own classroom and I'd be able to share these with my students. So many times my students get so excited to see the new and different things. And one thing I try to teach is because things are different doesn't mean they're wrong, they're just different. So when we lived in Florida, we had a sailboat and we went sailing. When we lived in Japan, I learned to speak Japanese and I learned to paint in the Sumi style. When we lived in Italy, I learned to speak Italian and we interacted with our Italian neighbors. I learned to cook. I also learned all about their country. I finished my undergraduate degree when we were in Italy, and in the classroom we went to Rome, Naples, and Pompeii. And so those were great experiences that I had in education. In Idaho, I may as well have lived in a foreign country. Our neighbors were ranchers, and I remember helping my neighbor herd cattle on one evening when there was thunder snow outside, and the horses were panicking because of the loud noise and the crazy weather. But through all these experiences, I learned to value people for who they are and for their diversity. I think this is something I could bring to Next Schools. I recently finished my dissertation, and the topic I wrote about was my GED classroom. In my GED classroom, I teach, in the mornings I teach rural students, and in the evenings I teach urban students. And I noticed there was a difference. And so my hypothesis for my dissertation is that there's a difference between rural and urban students and the reasons that they dropped out of school. Now, knowing that Next Schools has an urban campus in Greenville and 2 rural campuses in Salem, I feel like that my research behind my dissertation would be very valuable and contribute to plans that we might have for Next Schools. My management style is a group-centered leadership theory. I do not believe in micromanaging, and I think when everybody involved in the group has a buy-in and believes that they have an input in the outcome, that the outcome will be more effective. This goes along with systems theory, where groups work together to find the best outcome for the entire group. I believe and have had success in my committee work with holding people accountable. People volunteer for positions or assigned positions, and then we meet as a group and they're held accountable to the group. And I found that it works very effectively without coercion, with just deadlines and accountability to the group. And so I have embraced that style of leadership. On one occasion, I did have a difficult situation that I faced with a colleague, actually. And he and I had collaborated on an educational plan for my GED students for when they graduated. They would leave the GED program and would either have plans to further their education or want to become employed. And so we developed a program where my students would work with mentors or coaches, and they would learn things like soft skills, they would learn resume skills, they would build their resumes, they would plan for their next step. And it was looked upon as not a hierarchy, but a coach-mentor type relationship. And so it was a very successful program until one time my colleague was coaching one of my former students and had a verbal altercation with him. And I had to confront my colleague and point out to him that we had based our program on a mentor coach level, where realizing that our students were lower socioeconomic and they came from an underserved population, we would not try to be the dominant culture that preached to them and told them what was right or wrong, but we would embrace our differences and try to show them new ways or offer new ways to do things that had proven to be successful for us. And so confronting him on this and reminding him and calling him out on what we had discussed and in our collaboration was difficult for me. But in the end, it worked, and he did apologize and try to make amends to this student. I love the concept of project-based learning that the charter school Next is built on, and I think that this is an excellent model for students. I can remember in my school days asking my teachers, why are we having to learn sines and cosines and tangents in a math class? I didn't understand how I would use those later in life. And I had a great teacher who explained to me that it wasn't that we would be using just math skills like 2 + 2 = 4 and multiplication and division, but developing the ability to analyze problems, to go deeper, was not just a skill that we learned just in a math class. It could be taken onto all areas of life. I had an experience with my GED students where I passed Greenville High School one evening as I was getting ready to teach, and I saw on their marquee the phrase that says, "Every child is homeschooled. What is your child learning at home?" And I decided to use that on an impromptu writing assignment. And so I posed this question to my students, and I was very disappointed in the responses. My students said things like math, science, social studies, because they took the literal meaning of homeschooled to mean that their children were homeschooled. And they didn't take the inference that's made in this statement that what is your child learning at home? Things like values and manners and relationship building and how to get along with other people and how to live in community. And so I was so disappointed that my GED students had not had the opportunity to embrace higher order thinking skills. They'd either not been taught it, and so they were bored with school and dropped out, although most of them dropped out for other reasons than that. But I did feel like that it was a deficit in their education, and I did not like that for them. And so I really embrace the project-based learning based on the fact that it teaches these higher order thinking skills. It teaches students to learn, to question, to use facts that they know. They can take an event in the news. They can take a scientific experiment. They can take something that they read about and say, was this the best outcome? Or could there have been a different outcome? And so I think that project-based learning is so real world. Just like in a major industry or in a business, we would analyze, we would look at why we had the results that we did, we would want to look at what we could do better, we would question things. And so I believe that project-based learning provides real-world experiences for our students before they head out into the next phase of their life. As an educator, I believe in facilitating students. I believe in making connections and collaborating. I believe that it would be great in Next Schools to collaborate between campuses. I believe that our families of our students offer such rich, diverse experiences that we could use those and leverage those for help with our students. And so to conclude what I'd like to say, I look forward to the next step in the interview process. I feel like I'm a very strong candidate for this position with my research on rural and urban environments and my experience in that area. I feel like my management style has been very effective in the past, and I look forward to continuing in that style, improving it in ways that I can, and using it most effectively and hopefully to help Next Schools move to the next step. I also really like the project-based learning acronyms that you use as peers and pros for each other, because I think that that shows a relationship. I think that that's just like the real world working environment where senior management and senior employees try to mentor and help the junior employees. Just like in the education field, as a senior teacher, I have been a mentor for a junior teacher. And I think that we can all share experiences this way instead of each person having to learn on their own. Mentors help in so many ways. So as this application process continues, I hope that I'll hear from you again, and I really look forward to meeting you in person and discussing more about what I could bring to Next Schools as its new director. Thank you.